G'day everyone and welcome to my art channel Brushes with Beck. Today's video is a tutorial on how to burnish with coloured pencils. Burnishing is one of the many techniques that can be used for blending coloured pencils, and burnishing itself involves pressing firmly with your colour pencils or a blending tool in order to push that pigment really onto the paper and to flatten the texture of that paper and to push those colours into each other rather than slowly layering. So for this tutorial I'm using Fabriano Artistico hot pressed watercolour paper and Faber-Castell Polychromos coloured pencils. The colours that I'm mainly using are beige red, light purple pink and purple violet if you wanted to try this out yourself. So the first circle there, I'm simply burnishing using the existing colours that I'm already colouring in with. So I'm layering up with my three colours and then I'm repeatedly going over those layers to increase the pressure gradually and finishing off with a really hard pressure on that final burnished layer. It's probably one of the most common ways of burnishing is to get a really saturated and rich colour is to use those colours that you have applied to the paper for the layering. Now, in order to burnish, you need to get really good base layers in. So I always start out with your lightest colour, in this case the beige red, move on to your mid-tone, which I'm using light purple pink, and then onto your darker tone, purple violet. Now you may be using more colours than that. It doesn't really matter, more or less colours, just start with your lightest colour and work towards your dark colour and slowly build up those layers. You don't want to go straight in and burnish because then you won't get a nice blend. So you want to gradually build up those layers with a slightly lighter pressure and blending them as you build up those layers. And once you've gotten to a place that you're comfortable with, then you can burnish over the top. Now, if you don't build up those layers properly first, you are not going to get a good burnish of that colour pencil. There won't be enough pigment to push around and fill the paper. It's going to look a bit splotchy, so you really need to make sure you're building up some nice smooth layers first before you burnish to avoid those marks and imperfections. I don't burnish very often because I find it quite hard on my hand, but it is very useful for things such as eyes in animals to get that really nice glassy look. And I know it's very commonly used for skin and drawing skin tones. Burnishing is very useful to that, to get that smooth texture of the skin. Obviously with animals it's a little bit different because you're drawing fur. I tend to do my underlayers and then sometimes the fur texture itself, those top layers, drawing in that texture is what is burnishing the paper. The next two circles along are what's called saturation burnishing, and this is basically toning down your colours with, say, a white or a warm grey, any sort of neutral tone, and applying that over your layered colours to burnish with that. So white is probably the most common one that is used, and that's in the first circle there. You can see it really tones down those colours and makes them much more muted. And in the following circle I used warm grey too, and the effect that this gave was it toned down the colours, but obviously it's darker than the white, and it also adds that slight warm hint to it rather than cooling it down a little bit like the white did. Now, knowing this is sort of really important to be able to tone down your colours rather than burnishing with just those straight colours that you're layering with, which can often be too vibrant. You need to be able to use neutral tones and whites to be able to tone down those colours when needed. Now the bottom row of circles there are all what's called tonal burnishing, where you use a colour that is not neutral, that's not one of the original colours you've used. So you're adding a different colour tone to those layers and burnishing with that different colour tone. Now this can be really good if you've got a light source hitting an object. You can colour that object as it is and then use the colour of the light source to burnish, so you adjust that colour to complement the image. I'm not sure if I've explained that very well. But I've done 3 different examples of tonal burnishing so that I can show you the different effects you can achieve where you've used the same underlayer colours but burnished with a different colour. The first colour I've burnished with is salmon. I wanted to use something that was similar to the colours that I had layered with. Then I've gone in with a cream, which is a light but bright yellow, and you can see it's toned down the colours and made them slightly brown. And then finally I've burnished with a sky blue, and you can see that's cooled things down and made them a bit more similar in value over the whole circle, because it has made that light area much darker. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this video about burnishing useful. Let me know if there are any other pencil techniques you would like to learn about in the comments down below. Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to my channel, hit that thumbs up button, and I will see you next week for another video. Stay creative.